So, you think you know 80s movies? You know all about the Flux Capacitor, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and Ferris Bueller's Big Day Off. But for every blockbuster that practically defined the decade, there are a ton of brilliant, bizarre, and just plain hilarious comedies that have been totally lost to time.
Captain, how soon can you land?
I can't tell.
You can tell me I'm a doctor.
No, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Or can't you take a guess?
Well, not for another 2 hours.
You can't take a guess for another 2 hours?
These aren't just movies. They're time capsules from a weirder, wilder era of filmmaking. The 1980s were an incredible time for comedy. It was an era of big hair, bold choices, and jokes that would make a modern studio executive break out in a cold sweat. But while everyone's still quoting Ghostbusters and The Breakfast Club, a whole universe of comedic gold has been sitting on dusty VHS tapes, or buried deep in streaming libraries, just waiting for a comeback. These are the films that took chances, embraced the absurd, and gave us some of the most memorable, if overlooked, performances of the decade. Maybe they were overshadowed by bigger hits. Maybe their humor was just too weird for the mainstream. Or maybe they just got lost in the shuffle. Today, we're digging them up. This is our first mission to resurrect the forgotten comedies of the 80s. The movies that are more than ready for a second act. So grab your popcorn, because we're about to look at 5 films you probably missed but absolutely need to see. First up is a film that nails the surreal and dark humor that could only exist in the 80s. Better Off Dead from 1985. The movie stars a young John Cusack as Lane Meyer, a high schooler who becomes comically obsessed with ending it all after his girlfriend dumps him for the captain of the ski team. If that sounds dark, it's because it is, but the movie handles it with such a bizarre and light-hearted tone that it becomes one of the most unique teen comedies ever.
Now, open this one next. I remembered how much you like the chocolate nut brownie in this one. And look, corn and seasoned sauce. He likes corn.
What really makes Better Off Dead a cult favorite is its absolute commitment to being weird. This is not your average teen movie. It's a world where a paperboy stalks Lane for $2. His mom cooks food that literally crawls off the plate.
I know it's bacon, honey. What have you done to it?
And his younger brother is a silent super genius who builds a working space shuttle in the garage. The film is just packed with surreal gags, from a stop-motion hamburger that comes to life and shreds a Van Halen solo, to Lane's daydreams of being a hero in a black and white romance. Interestingly, the film was deeply personal for writer-director Savage Steve Holland. The story was pulled from his own life. He was also dumped by his high school girlfriend for a ski team captain. Years later, his ex actually called him, saying she'd been in therapy after seeing the movie because she had no clue how much she'd hurt him. Even though it's a cult classic now, the film wasn't a huge box office hit, and Cusack himself supposedly hated it at first, thinking it was just too strange. He eventually came around, but its quiet release meant it was saved from vanishing by cable TV and video stores, where it finally found its people. It stands as proof of a time when a major studio would actually release a teen comedy that was this wonderfully strange. Just a few months after Better Off Dead came another 1985 classic that mixed smarts with a surprising amount of heart, Real Genius. Starring a ridiculously charming Val Kilmer, the film is set at Pacific Tech, a university for prodigies. We follow a 15-year-old wunderkind, Mitch Taylor, who's recruited to help build a high-powered laser. He gets paired with Chris Knight, played by Kilmer, a senior who used to be a serious student, but now uses his brain for elaborate pranks and avoiding burnout. Real Genius often gets lumped in with other teen comedies like Revenge of the Nerds, but it's a much smarter and funnier movie. It dodges the tired jocks versus nerds formula. Instead, it's a celebration of brilliant people using their intelligence just to have fun. Like when they turn a dorm hallway into a skating rink or rig a rival's braces to work as a radio receiver.
Where's the laser now?
I overheard
Jerry mentioned something about a test.
The humor comes from witty dialogue and clever situations, not just cheap gags. And underneath it all, it's a movie about the ethics of science, as the students find out their laser isn't for a class project. It's meant to be something far more sinister. The movie's director, Martha Coolidge, actually spent months researching laser technology and interviewing students at Caltech to give the film an authentic feel. It was also the first movie ever to be promoted online, through a press conference held on CompuServe back in 1985. But the most legendary part of the film has to be its finale. It's a gag so famous that Mythbusters later tested if it could really work. Spoiler, it can't. But it's still one of the most satisfying revenge plots in movie history.
Now, you listen to me, Jesus. This is Jerry's house, and we're very close. So if you're not going to answer me, then I'm just going to have to go in. So I'm going.
2 years later, in 1987, we got a teen film that felt like the polar opposite of a John Hughes movie. 3 O'Clock High. While Hughes's films were often warm and fuzzy, 3 O'Clock High is all about tension, anxiety, and dark comedy. The plot couldn't be simpler. A mild-mannered student named Jerry Mitchell accidentally bumps into the new school bully, Buddy Revel, a terrifying guy who lives by one rule: you touch him, you fight him. Buddy challenges Jerry to a fight after school, at 3 o'clock sharp. The rest of the movie is a real-time countdown to Jerry's apparent doom. What makes this film a cult classic is its incredible style. The director, Phil Joannou, who started out making music videos for U2, shoots the film like a thriller. The camera work is frantic and stylish, reflecting Jerry's growing panic, and the score by Tangerine Dream just layers on the dread. It's a high school movie that feels more like a noir film, perfectly capturing that feeling when you're a teenager. A school fight can seem like a life or death event. The film completely bombed at the box office, but it's since been embraced as a cult favorite by fans and filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino. Here's a great bit of trivia. Steven Spielberg was an executive producer on the movie, but he had his name taken off the final cut. The film's dark, edgy tone was a big departure from the family-friendly Amblin brand he was building, so he decided to distance himself from it. While that might have hurt the film's chances at first, it also helped cement its status as a true hidden gem. This is a movie for anyone who ever felt like an outsider and knew that sometimes high school is less about finding a prom date and more about just surviving until the final bell. Now, let's head up to the Great White North for one of the most Canadian and delightfully weird comedies ever made, 1983's Strange Brew.
Good day. Oh, do our new movie theme, eh?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good day. I'm Bob McKenzie. This is my brother Doug.
How's it going, eh?
The film stars Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas as Bob and Doug McKenzie, two clueless, beer-loving brothers they created for the sketch show SCTV. The characters were actually invented as a protest against government rules for identifiable Canadian content on TV. They got so popular that they released an album that went platinum and eventually that led to this movie. The plot of Strange Brew is, to put it lightly, nuts. On a mission to get free beer, Bob and Doug land jobs at the Elsinore Brewery, only to stumble upon a plot by the evil brewmeister Smith, played by the legendary Max von Sydow. The brewmeister is putting a mind control drug in the beer to try and take over the world. The whole thing is a very, very loose parody of Shakespeare's Hamlet, with the brewery's drama meant to mirror the rotten state of Denmark. The movie is just wall-to-wall slapstick, goofy one-liners, and a pure love for Canadian stereotypes. Moranis and Thomas didn't just star in the film, they also co-wrote and co-directed it, which gave them the freedom to make something that was completely their own.
Hey, did you feed Hosehead this morning?
No, I forgot. He was sleeping, eh?
Well, make up your mind, eh?
Yeah, he was sleeping.
Well, maybe we ought to go home and feed him, eh?
It's a movie where a dog flies a van, a ghost possesses an arcade game, and the climax features a hockey-playing ghost and a tidal wave of beer. The film was a decent success, but has since become a huge cult classic, loved for its pure originality and goofy charm. There was even a sequel planned back in 1999, but it sadly never happened, eh? We'll close out this volume with a film that isn't so much forgotten as it is not talked about nearly enough. The 1988 action comedy, Midnight Run. The film stars Robert De Niro as Jack Walsh, a jaded bounty hunter hired to bring in Jonathan the Duke Mardukas, a soft-spoken accountant played by Charles Grodin, who stole millions from the mob. What's supposed to be an easy 5-day trip from New York to LA turns into a chaotic cross-country chase as they're hunted by the FBI, the mob, and another bounty hunter. What makes Midnight Run so good is the incredible chemistry between De Niro and Grodin. De Niro was specifically looking to do a comedy to get away from his tough guy image, and he is brilliant as the short-tempered Walsh. And Charles Grodin is the perfect opposite, giving a masterclass in quiet, deadpan humor as the fussy and judgmental Duke. Their banter is some of the sharpest and funniest you'll find in any 80s movie. The studio actually wanted a bigger name like Robin Williams for Grodin's part, but director Martin Brest fought for him after seeing his amazing screen test with De Niro. But this movie is more than just funny. It's a perfectly crafted road movie and buddy picture. The action is great, the supporting cast is filled with amazing character actors like Yaphet Kotto and Dennis Farina, and the script by George Gallo is both witty and surprisingly moving.
You seen any suspicious-looking characters around here?
No.
Do you live around here?
Yeah.
Charles Grodin was so dedicated to the role that he got permanent scars on his wrists from wearing real handcuffs for most of the movie. While it got good reviews and did pretty well, it never hit that blockbuster level of something like Beverly Hills Cop. But for those who know it, Midnight Run is pretty much a perfect movie and a high point for the action comedy genre that absolutely deserves another watch. And there you have it. 5 hilarious, creative, and overlooked comedies from the 1980s that are definitely worth your time. From surreal teen problems to Shakespearean beer conspiracies, these films show there's a whole world of comedy out there beyond the big hits. But this is just volume 1. The 80s were full of these kinds of movies, and we've barely scratched the surface. What are some of your favorite forgotten comedies from that time? What movies do you think deserve a second chance? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them, and your suggestions might just show up in volume 2. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, do us a solid and hit that like button, and make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss our next look into cinema's forgotten past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.